Hey everybody, this is Zoltan, and if you are like me and you've played PES Master League quite a bit, one thing you may be tired of is having the same old players in the youth team and have a very limited pool of players to choose from, especially in the first year, the first season of the game. So what we're going to do is go into some ideas here how we can customize that. And first of all, go into Edit, and I will show you the location of where we can customize our youth team. It depends on actually which region you're going to be having your Master League, if it's in Europe or if it's in Latin America or Asia. This is the location of where the Master League youth team players are located. Now you cannot transfer players in and out of this location, unfortunately. So you might think, well, I'm stuck. There's nothing I can do. I'm stuck with the players that they give me, and this happens to be where the location is. It's in Other. So let me just show you here one thing that we can do. First of all, I'm going to go and find a player and remove him from the game. So it's good to find maybe a young player. I have somebody in mind here for Derby County. And there are a few players. Wayne Rooney obviously is not a youth player. He's got a real scanned face, but doesn't look like a youth at all. But there is a player here that does look, he's actually 21 years old, so is he young looking player. This 71 overall is reasonable, I think, for someone coming off the youth team. This is a guy, his name is Bielik from Poland. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually remove him from the game. So the way we do that is by going into Transfer. And so once you've found your player that you want to remove, because you don't want to have a twin, unless you do, if you don't really care, but you don't want to have a twin of the player that you're going to be putting into your youth division. So I'm going to remove this guy from the game just as he is and transfer him to another team. The best place where you can remove players from the game is down in the classic teams. We have Legends Pack 1, Pack 2. This is a place where they will not end up on anyone's team when you start up a Master League save. They're not going to appear anywhere. These two teams are completely out of the game. So you can store players in this location. So you just put them in here. Now he's gone. And so Derby County just simply doesn't have that player on their team anymore. So, too bad for them. You could obviously replace him temporarily if you wanted to. If you wanted to go out on the market, you could certainly add a player from free agency temporarily just so that they don't have a hole in their lineup. He was 71 overall, so I could actually go down and try to find a veteran player that would fill that hole temporarily if I wanted to. So for example, I go down 71 overall. Here's a guy from Switzerland, or maybe up here, this guy. Either one of these guys would be fine, just temporarily to put him in that slot if you don't want to hurt Derby County by having a hole in their lineup. So that's one option. But for now, we're just going to back out of here and go back to editing our youth team. And so we go back up to Players and Edit Players. And it's unfortunate that I cannot transfer directly into these spots. There doesn't seem to be any way to link this to a team transfer. So what I have to do is, if I know that I'm going to be playing with a team in Europe, for example, I will go in here and go to the one of these bad players that is in the low 50s. And what I can do is go to base copy, which is down here in the edit players. If this is a player that doesn't have a real face, this will be available, that you can just click on this base copy. And so this guy, Andrushko from Russia, will be pasted over. And so now I can go find the player that I just took out of the game, and this would be in my PES Legends Pack 2. And let's go and find, here he is. The guy from Poland is Belik. And he looks like a youth player, so I can just paste him on. And so now his twin, or his doppelganger, is now in the game as a youth team product. And you can keep him from the same nationality. That's one thing you can change if you want to, but just, for now I'll keep him from Poland and have him as a defensive midfielder. I might want to change his age a little bit, so I could bring him down to, let's say, maybe 17 years old. And he's 71 overall. That's fairly realistic for a youth team player. Now you can put somebody in here a little higher or a little lower, depending on which team you're going to be playing with. I find that if I'm playing with a high caliber team, I oftentimes don't even use my youth team at all, because if I'm Barcelona, for example, I'm not going to be playing with a player that's 71. He'll just be sitting at the bottom of my bench forever. So, you can put somebody a little higher, maybe a 75 or a 77 is about as high as I would go. Now, the other thing you can do, if you want, you can change his name. He doesn't have a commentary name, so I usually will go in and try to find another similar name. So I think if we go and do a quick search, his name was B-I-E, and I don't think there's anybody with a similar name at all. So I could replace him with a name BK. And what I can do is actually change his name. Now that's not going to be permanent, because all I have to do is just unpaste him from this guy, and he'll go back to what he normally was. So I can also change his name on his uniform. And I usually leave his national team name just so that I can remember who he was before. So that's not going to appear on my club team uniform. So this is his new name, BK. So there he is, KBK from Poland. Now he has a commentary name. You can change other things if you want. Change his playing style if you don't want to use Anchorman. Maybe you want to use Orchestrator or something. And you can also change some of his skills. He does have some good skills here. Wow, he can be a captain. It's unusual for a young player like that. I didn't realize that he has that. Well, that's nice. So if I ever did want to switch him back and bring him back to the original player he was, I simply need to just click on triangle, which is reset, and he'll go back to his original self. And then I can move the real guy, Belik, back to Derby County, and nothing will be harmed there. So now he's in here, so let's take a quick look at where he is. And I do have some other players that I have done the same thing with, some younger looking players. A lot of these guys came in the Data Pack 8 that didn't have a team. For example, I think this guy, for example, was not on any team at all, so he was just a free agent, so I didn't even have to steal him from anywhere. I just used him as he was and just changed his age This guy's obviously a little older, but this guy here, he looks like he could be 17. So here's another guy, youthful looking guy. I think he was originally in his 20s, but I made him a 16-year-old guy. Woodburn, I left him as he is. He's a very youthful looking player, made him 16 years old, and I basically just stole him from, I think he's on either Liverpool or Manchester United. So yeah, this is a good. Now this is one of the original guys who we've all seen. This guy and Harrington, we've all had him on our Master League saves over and over and over again, and you're a little bit tired of getting these same two guys on our team. So, you can replace him with some. And I don't usually change anything about their stats. So this guy is legitimately a 67 with a real face, and he is from Finland, except that's not his real name. So I changed his name, and I think this is another one here. I changed his name, but they were free agents, and they have a real face, so that's kind of nice to bring somebody with a real face off of your youth team. So you can do this for each. If you play with Brazil, for example, you can add guys. This guy, Paraguay, I don't even think he's from Paraguay, but I did make that so that it was somewhat realistic. This guy's Solano. I think he's actually from Europe somewhere, and I made him from Argentina just so I could put him in the Latin America. Here's another guy. I think he's from Eastern Europe somewhere. But I just said he's from Costa Rica and changed his name and put him in here. So I did this for several players, about 7 or 8 players from each one, and also with Asia, which includes Australia. So there's actually, this guy is from Australia, and so I have some guys with real faces from Thailand or Japan. And many of these guys didn't have teams. They were just free agents that I went out and found and just moved them into here by pasting them on a player that was already in the youth team for that region. So we have Europe, Latin America, and Asia. All right, so now that's one thing. Here's another interesting thing that I thought of as I am oftentimes thinking about different ideas for Master League and what we can do to make it kind of fun and interesting. I came across the team in Serie A, which is a team that seems to have a lot of loaned players, which is Genoa. And they're kind of a mid-table or lower table. I think that they're in trouble right now. They're probably going to be relegated soon, maybe. So they're kind of a lower level team in Serie A, and for some reason they just have an unbelievable amount of loaned players, and I thought it would be kind of fun to have an entire team of just only loaned players, because at the end of the season they will all be gone, and now you start from scratch. And so that's kind of a fun idea that I thought would be kind of cool. And let me just show you some ideas of what you can do with this. Just to give you an idea, let's go take a look at the players on this team. Unfortunately, you cannot start a team with such a small number of players because they won't show up as loaned players. You have to have 11 other players in order for the 11 players who are loaned players to show up as loaned players, which is a really weird thing in the game. So here's just kind of an interesting idea of what I did with Genoa. Is I went and found their 11 players who are actually loaned players. Each one of these guys is loaned. Perin is from Juventus. Salmaro is from Lille. Romaro is also from Juventus. Falque is, so each one of these, Torino, each one of these guys is loaned in from another team. And there's actually 11 players. Now, there's a weird thing in PES. For some reason, only a total of 9 players are allowed to show up as loaned players. So 2 of them, unfortunately, don't show up as loaned players, and it's these bottom 2 guys. It's Caseta. Actually, it's not the bottom 2 guys. It's Caseta and Barreca. For some reason, don't show up as loaned players, even though I know they are loaned. But everybody else is a loaned player, and I thought it'd be kind of cool to just have a team of 11 players. But as I said, they made me put in 11 other players. So what I did is I brought in these guys over here who are from Thailand, you know, some really low-level players that I can just release later on in order for me to have the 11 players show up as loan players. Just kind of a fun idea just to start off. And I'll show you one other thing that we can do here is if you find a player that does not have a real face and is a loaned player, once again we can do a similar thing that we just did before. This is a guy who actually came as a loaned player from Inter Milan, and I thought it would be kind of cool to bring some different guy in from Inter Milan that has a real face that is also a loaned player, so that he will go back to that same team when the season is finished. And so the way we can do this is go to the same thing, base copy, and I'm basically going to kill this guy and replace him with someone else. And here's the way we do that. So here's another player from Inter Milan that was loaned. Unfortunately, you can't sort in this stage. So here's a pretty famous player, Nangolan, who is also a loaned player. Cagliari is a little bit higher level team than Genoa, but not by much. They're kind of a mid-level team in Serie A, so it's not unreasonable to think that he could have been loaned to Genoa. And also, you know, he is from Inter Milan as well as Pinamonte, so he will go back to Inter Milan as well, even though I'm pasting him over Pinamonte. So the way we do this is just bring him in like that. And now Pinamonte becomes Nangolan. Now you can make adjustments here. You can, I prefer to use him as an attacking midfielder, so I can change his position. And so I think box to box can still be used for attacking midfielders. I'll just leave him like that. And everything else remains the same. So I now have Nangolan on my team instead of Pinamonte. And so what I want to do is bring Nangolan out of the game. And the way we do this is, I could have actually found a way to paste, this would have been even better if I could have pasted Pinamonte somehow onto another. In fact, that is kind of an interesting thing. Let's try to see if we can do this. If I wanted to, I could. Let's see how we would do it. Well, I would have to go into Cagliari and give them Pinamonte instead of Nangolan, and the way that I would do that is I would paste him onto one of their lower level players, somebody like this, 61 overall. I could paste Pinamonte here, and so at least Cagliari would be getting another player. But anyway, I'll just skip that for now. I'm not going to get into the depths of this. Just to be fair to them. It's just not going to happen. So what I'm going to do is just remove Nangolan from this team. Sadly, their best player is no longer on the team because he's now on Genoa. So I will transfer him out, and I'll bring him to one of these other teams where he will now be out of the game. Sad for them. Cagliari, I'm sure, will be very disappointed. But now he's on Genoa. So let's take a look at now what this would look like. Hopefully this will all work out. So now that I have, it's kind of a low-level team, but they're kind of a mid, 3.5 stars. It's a little bit better than Lecce, and no, they're actually one of the worst teams in Serie A. So let's see what this looks like. So we'll back out of here, save everything, and we can start up a new Master League save with Genoa. And so I will select my team, and I just passed them. And let's use Maradona as the manager. Of course, he's not going to wear a suit. And let's just change this to dollars. All right, so what we're going to be looking at now is how many loaned players they have, and whether or not the Pinamonte is now gone and replaced by Nangolan. And we're also going to be looking at our youth division. So here we are, the cutscene where Diego Maradona is being introduced. And so let's see who we have here to greet him. These are loaned players here. So I think that one guy is Sumaro. Oh, there's Perrin, the goalkeeper. So let's see our goals for the season. They're probably going to ask me to be in the top 6, which I don't think we can do. So let's say no. We should focus on top half, which I think is fine, 13th or higher. And we will come out here and meet the press. By the way, you can customize this backdrop. You can put different sponsors and different colors if you want, but it looks fine the way it is. Some teams are just totally generic. All right, let's strike a balance. None of this actually matters. And of course Maradona wants to put on a show. So let's go take a look at what our team looks like now. So negotiations, we have a transfer budget of 28 million and the salary budget is 10.7 million, which is actually right around the same as what the original Genoa team is anyway, even with the original 34 players that by the way, I removed like half of the team, so the only team members on the team now are loaned players and a bunch of free agents that I just got off the street who are in kind of the low 50s. So that's all we have for our team is a starting 11. But unfortunately, only 9 of them will actually show up here as as loaned players. I don't know why, even though I know there are 11 teams. So now here's the good thing. Nangolan is going to return back to Inter Milan at the end of this year. So that's kind of the good thing about swapping him in for Pinamonte. So at least they get their player back. One thing it does mess up is his market value is now only 16.5 million, which is clearly not. I think Nangolan would probably be worth something like 40 or 50 million. So that does mess things up a little bit. When he does eventually return to them, he can easily be purchased by other teams in a transfer at a low price. So that's an unfortunate thing, but anyway, he's at least going back to the right team. And so, that's one interesting way that you can stock up your team. Now let's take a look here at our youth division, our youth team. And we can find here the guy has a market value of $17.8 million, and his first annual salary will be $554,000. This is the guy that we stole from Derby County. His name was Belik, but now his name is BK. And we can take a look at his face by going to youth team training. And here he is. So that's the guy that we stole from Derby County. He's now in our youth division, so this makes it kind of cool. And you can just go through and just find any players that you think are kind of youthful, young-looking players, change their age to like 16, 17, 18, and slide them in. And here's kind of a little bit higher rated one here, but still a young-looking player. And the other thing we can look at is our game plan. So here's the sad part, is that Nangolan, his small face is no longer him. So this is actually Pinamonte's face here. But that's just the way it is. So he's now slotted into that attacking midfielder position instead of Pinamonte, who is a center forward. So I already have a center forward here, so I didn't need another one. So I have just 11 starting players, and as you can see, the remainder of my team, all of the rest of these guys are all just garbage. There's no way I would ever use any of these players. So I basically have a team of 11 loaned players. Unfortunately, 2 of them, Casata and Bareka, are not showing up as loan players, so they are now on the team officially. And the other 9 guys will be gone at the end of this season, so I have to start over with a whole new 11 players. And look at how bad my team chemistry is. It's at 64, so this is unusually low. So this is going to be a hard team to play with, because they don't match this this type of attacking and defensive instructions. So, well, that's just the way it is, and we'll just have to play with them, and they'll start to get used to those positions. So let's take another quick look here at the team itself. The sad thing about Genoa is, which is kind of ridiculous, they have loaned out a whole bunch of players that I will be getting at the end of this first season, and at the beginning of the second season will be returning. And it just makes you wonder, why did they loan out a whole bunch of players and then loan in a whole bunch of players? I kind of wonder if they would have been better off just keeping their original players, because they didn't do very well this season with the players that they brought in. So there's a whole bunch of guys here, as you can see. If you look up at the little icon under Deal Negotiator, you can see all these guys are loaned out. So they'll all be coming back. So you'll end up starting with an entire team next season of guys that are returning from loan, replacing the guys that I currently have on the team from loan, plus a whole bunch of garbage down here at the bottom that I was forced to have on the team in order for me to be able to start. You have to have 11 players. They don't count the loan players. So even if I tried to remove some of these players, after I remove them, it would no longer let me remove. So I'll give you an example here. Because I have 9 players instead of 11, but if I just, as soon as I get past 2, like if I release this guy, there's a little penalty But I do get some money back on my salary budget, but I get penalized on my transfer budget. And let's release one more guy here. And I get a 10,000 penalty, and some salary budget does come back. But that'll be it. If I try to release more, let's see what happens after this one. I don't think I can release any more after this. No, see? That'll be it. So they only even... See, that's the reason I had to start with those garbage players. I had to add them onto the team because it won't let me start without them. So that it'll be a problem. And they won't... Those other players who were actually loaned players will not show up as loaned players. They'll end up just being regular members of the team. So these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 players, I don't even think I'm allowed to sell them, because I have to have them on my team because everybody else on this team is loaned out. So it's kind of a ridiculous situation with GENOA. So I cannot sell these players until I start adding players from the youth team, which I can do because I do have some money here in my salary budget. I've got 10.8 million, and each of these guys, starting with the top guy, is a salary of 1.1. You can't negotiate that. You can just bring them in, and what's cool is that they have a real face, so I can bring each of these guys in. I can bring 5 at a time. Bring another one in here. And another thing I can do is I can even go out and I can bring in other youth division players. You can do a search here with free agents. This is another possibility. So as you can see, we have players here from other teams who are on the last year of their contract. I could, if I wanted to, I could try to bring somebody like he doesn't require a transfer fee. He only requires an annual salary. He has a good impression of the team. So I can actually negotiate maybe a little bit lower than this. But I don't really want to bring in a 35-year-old player at this time. So what I would really like to do is look at some of these younger players. Let's bring this down to age 20. And what you can do is you can actually steal players from the other youth teams from Asia and Latin America. So this guy is one of the players that I added. Here's another one. Remember, this guy was on the Latin America team. If I wanted to add another backup goalkeeper, I have other players here from... Here's a guy that's not a youth player. I don't know where he came from. Just a free agent. Same thing with this guy. But there are some players here that I can bring in. Here's a guy that I think he's from Young Boys. I changed his... I think that's actually his name. And I put him on the youth team of Latin America and just said that he's from Brazil. I believe he's not from Brazil. I think he's actually from Luxembourg, if I remember correctly. And he plays for Young Boys. And I just removed him from the game and pasted him over on Latin America. So I could actually bring him in if I wanted to right now. If I wanted to have another center midfielder, I can actually negotiate. It's not a bad salary, 631. I could give him 3 years. It seems like he would welcome a move to the club, so that would be great if I could bring somebody like that in. And yeah, let's go ahead and bring in a better center back as well. 3 years. And let's see, how about Yeah, maybe I need a backup goalkeeper. Has a good impression of our team, so this should be easy. Now I can only do 5 at a time. Let's change this to 5 days and just move forward, see what happens. And so this would be a way for me to just go into the youth team or bring in some free agents and just kind of start over. You know, imagine if you had a team, for example, that had a scandal, some kind of a corruption scandal, and all of the players' contracts were voided and everyone basically left the team, and you had a team that had no players on it, and so you just had a bunch of loaned players as well as some youth team. And so we bring in the uncorruptible Diego Maradona to teach these guys a thing or two, and bring them in and start your team over. Now we have some negotiations that just came in, so this guy is nope, he accepted the deal, so we can just accept the terms on that. And we lose a little bit more salary budget. This guy accepted the terms as well, so that was a good one. Got a good backup goalkeeper, and he also has accepted the terms. So yeah, we're able to add 5 new players to the team. Let's just switch this to 1 day and bring them in. So you have to advance 1 day to actually bring them onto the team. And we'll probably have a cut scene here. Yep, here we go. So here's our new young center back. And so let's take a little bit of a look here before we end this video of what our team is looking like now. So this is our original loaned team, and as you can see, I still have all these garbage players here, but now I've brought in 5 new young players that unfortunately none of them have faces on this screen, but these are, you know, some good young players that are somewhere between 19 to 17 years old. This guy's 17, and this is our new team basically, because eventually these loan players are going to be gone. So I'm basically going to be replacing them with guys that I bring in off my youth division, and it's kind of like a whole new restart, as well as it's kind of unfortunate that I have so many players coming back from loan. I would almost like to start the entire team over just with players that I can bring off the youth division and try to develop them. It'd be kind of a fun road to glory save that I could do, and play with these guys for a season and bring in and develop the youth players little by little. As you can see, many of them are actually fairly competitive. Some of them will probably start right away. Like this guy, I think I could actually bring him directly into my starting lineup. This guy as well, which is fine because I don't need to develop these loaned players. They're not actually my players. And so, you know, just little by little, I will start replacing my youth division players with, you know, replacing the loan players with the guys that I get from my youth division, which is cool because now they all have real faces, and as time goes on, I'll just continue to bring in more and more of these good youth players. And it doesn't take too much. Annual salary $500,000. I still have $5.8 million to play with, and that'll be my team in the first season. Hopefully we survive Serie A, and as time goes on, we'll just progressively get better and better. And I'll be able to sell some of these guys as well, because as you can see, many of them have a really high market value. 28 million, and his release fee is 37 million, so he's got room to grow. So a year from now, I could actually try to develop him and sell him, and that would be the way for me to replenish my transfer budget. The other thing we can do is, because we have a lot of transfer budget, 27 million, there are older players out there that you can bring in on a loan. For example, if you change this to older players, you can find some of them are very expensive. For example, if I wanted to bring Ronaldo in on a 1-year loan, actually I could probably do it, 24 million. Normally you have to boost that number up quite a bit, but there are some players out here who are unusually low. If you look at a 1-year loan here is only 5.9 million. I could definitely afford, you can even push this up to 7-8 million. So I do have some transfer budget, so there are some guys out here that Cellini, for example, he's 35 years old, but that doesn't matter to me. I'm not trying to develop him. He would only cost me about 2 million to bring in on a 1-year loan. So, and that comes out of my transfer budget, not my salary budget. So that would be a really good boost to the team to have an 87 overall center back. And there's several other players that you can go through if they're older, 33 years or older. Dzeko, suddenly I would have a really world-class center forward for $6 million. Of course, that's money down the drain because I can't sell him, of course. He comes in on a 1-year loan. But that would certainly be a good starting center forward, 86 overall. So you can go through and there's a whole bunch of guys here that you could actually add to the team. Let me think if there's somebody like this. Center mid, 3.3 million. You would have to go up a little bit, otherwise they're not even going to be interested. So like 4.6 million for a pretty good center midfielder. So you'd have to go through, you could fill in your holes like that, and that would be the way for you to have at least a good enough team to stay in the mid-table. And then next season, try to develop your youth team and see what you can do. But it'd be pretty exciting. I think that would be kind of a fun idea for a team to just start only with basically a whole team of youth and loaned players and see how you can develop from there. It would be kind of a fun road to glory team with a little bit of a narrative of having a huge political scandal or financial scandal, and Diego Maradona comes in to save the day. So that's it. That shows you some ideas of what you can do to customize your youth team and your different ideas of how to customize your loaned players. So that's all.